International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has inspected and inaugurated several development projects during a visit paid to the province of Khenchela, east of the country. Algeria and China have agreed to coordinate between the delegations of the two countries in the Security Council in support of the Palestinian cause to stop the ongoing military aggression and genocidal activity in Rafah immediately. Algeria has called on the Security Council to assume its responsibilities by forcing the Israeli occupation to comply by its resolutions and the decision of the International Court of Justice concerning the Palestinian territories. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Silmani. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has inspected and inaugurated several development projects during a visit paid to the province of Khenchela, east of the country. The President of the Republic inaugurated the railway line linking Khenchela and Ain al-Bayda province of al-Bwaqi over a distance of 51 kilometers. This line for the transport of people and goods is part of the complementary program of the city decided by the President of the Republic. President Tebboune also inaugurated the 88 route between Khenchela and Batna over a distance of 14 kilometers. He also laid the foundation stone for the implementation of a program for the construction of 600 housing units under the public rental formula. After inspecting the progress of social development projects, President Tebboune thanked all the efforts of those involved in the completion of these achievements within the deadline set by the conscious national powers. The President of the Republic underlined that the time of long-term projects is over. The completion of 59 operations for a total public investment of 95.62 billion dinars under the Complementary Development Program decided by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, for the province of Khenchela will contribute to the economic takeoff of the whole region. Majid Milad tells us more.
The public authorities are currently working to complete this program before the end of the current year. Just 3 years after its announcement on the 21st of December 2021 at the end of the first Council of Government held outside the capital. The special program, whose spin-offs and impact will be beneficial for the entire population of this province, concerns the following sectors: energy, public works, agriculture, transport, industry, health, tourism and trade. In the agricultural sector, the local authorities reported that more than 1,100 farms have been connected to the electricity network, the opening up of many rural localities by means of farm tracks over a distance of 720 kilometers, in addition to supporting cereal production and improving storage capacity. In the transport sector, the impact of this additional program is highlighted by the opening up of the province, its interconnection with the national railway network, and improving the conditions for citizens and goods transport thanks to the construction of a railway line linking the towns of Khenchela and in Bayda over a distance of 51 kilometers. The same complementary development program has also made it possible to enlarge energy networks, particularly the rural gas network, by connecting 7,221 households in 98 areas of the country, including remote areas. In the water resources sector, the significant increase in the rate of the drinking water supply and sewerage networks and an increase in drinking water storage capacity, the renovation of distribution pipes in the province and the increase in the volumes used for agricultural irrigation are indicative of the exceptional effort made by the state to benefit the province of Khenchela.
As you followed in our top stories, Algeria and China agreed yesterday to coordinate between the delegations of the two countries in the Security Council in support of the Palestinian cause by constraining the occupying entity to stop its military aggression and all genocidal activity in Rafah immediately. The Foreign Ministry recalled in a communiqué that this came as a result of bilateral discussions between Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Beijing, where the Algerian diplomat is on a working visit entrusted by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. The same communiqué indicated that the decisions covered various issues of mutual interest between the two countries. Representatives of the Council of the Nation at the Arab Parliament's dialogue on the regional review of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action 30 years later, which began on Wednesday in Amman, Jordan, have highlighted the place of women in the legislative system and their contribution to the building of the new Algeria. Najia Ouajid Damraji, Deputy Chairman of the Council of the Nations, said at the first session of the dialogue that the new constitution has demonstrated the state's commitment to Algerian women in order to include them more fully in political practice, economic development and the construction of the new Algeria, the foundations of which were laid by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. The Secretary-General of the Dynamic Movement of the Algerian Community in France, Nasser Khabat, has appealed from Algiers to members of the national community around the world to vote massively in the presidential election on the 7th of September, stressing that this civic gesture would help preserve the legacy of the martyrs of the glorious revolution. Speaking at a press conference organized by the Mashal al-Shahid Association as part of the Al Mujahid Dailies Forum, Nasser Khabat said that the act of voting for members of the national community living abroad is not only a duty to one's homeland, but also a debt to be paid to the martyrs of the 1954 revolution who liberated this country and enabled it to be where it is today. In other news, the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, has announced the completion of 8 major and very important discoveries in the field of hydrocarbons in Algeria on new sites since the beginning of the current year, thanks to the efforts set by the oil and gas Sonatrach Group.
Till the current month of May, the total discoveries were 8 important and significant ones. These will bring about important additions to the hydrocarbon reserves, notably in natural gas, which is necessary to our national economy, and all that we expect is an increase in natural gas production, a huge potential put forward by Sonatrach to carry out these discoveries, firstly in Béchar, the south of In Salah, the northern part of Janet, the southern of Elizi, and the eastern part of Orgla.
Mr. Arqab announced the signing of important agreements between Sonatrach and various international companies to increase national production of hydrocarbons, and this, he said, after the recent signing of a memorandum of understanding between Sonatrach and ExxonMobil, which will be crowned by development contracts between or before the end of the year and will strengthen natural gas production in Algeria.
The investment atmosphere in Algeria is attractive and wonderful. The hydrocarbons law hopes to meet with international standards. We started working with it in 2020 and gave good results in various contracts with big international companies such as the Norwegian Equinor, the Italian Eni, and so on. Recently, with the American Occidental Petroleum, these are important contracts with Sonatrach to promote the Sonatrach hydrocarbons production. As you followed with us recently, the case was with world companies like ExxonMobil, which signed with Sonatrach a memorandum of understanding so as to explore various fields before the end of the year to give a fruitful addition to the production of natural gas.
Recently, an accord was signed between Sonatrach and the American company ExxonMobil. Following the signing ceremony, the ExxonMobil's Vice President of Global Operations, John Ardell, said the following.
There's much to look forward to, and still there is much work ahead of us. But I know I can speak for my team when I say we are ready and we are excited to work with all of you in the coming months to advance our discussions to the next stage and ultimately transform these engagements into a fruitful partnership between ExxonMobil and Sonatrach for the purpose of economic development for the people of Algeria.
That was John Ardil, the ExxonMobil's vice president. Algeria has condemned in the strongest possible terms the atrocities committed daily by the Zionist occupying forces in Gaza, expressing its deep concern at the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Palestinian enclave. Algeria condemns in the strongest possible terms the atrocities perpetrated and the flagrant and provocative violations committed daily by the Zionist occupying forces in the Gaza Strip, including the military operations carried out in the town of Rafah, said the permanent representative of Algeria to the United Nations office and the international organizations in Geneva, Rachid Bledhan. Speaking on the health situation in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Al-Quds and in the occupied Syrian Golan, at the 77th World Health Assembly, Mr. Bledhan underlined Algeria's deep concern about this catastrophic humanitarian situation, with the death toll of over 36,000 and 80,000 injured, 77 of whom are women and children. Algeria, through its permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Ammar Benjama, has called on the Security Council to assume its responsibilities by forcing the Zionist entity to comply with its resolutions and the decisions of the International Court of Justice concerning the Palestinian territories. Majid Mila has the details.
During his speech at the Security Council meeting devoted to the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, Ammar Benjama underlined the Council's obligation to enforce the latest ICJ decisions, namely to require the Zionist entity to halt its aggression against Rafah and allow humanitarian aid to pass through.
The occupation authority have made it clear they will not comply with the orders of the International Court of Justice. Instead, they continue to cover up murders and commit what they say tragic mistakes. This very Security Council is responsible under Article 94/4 of the Charter to ensure the implementation of the decisions of the ICJ. We demand that the Council assume its legal responsibilities.
More generally, the Algerian representative recalled that the Security Council must also apply its own resolutions relating to the illegal policy of colonization in the Palestinian territories by the Zionist entity. He said that the Security Council must fully implement its relevant resolutions, including Resolution 2334, for example, which clearly states that the Zionist settlements in the Palestinian territories are illegal and a flagrant violation of international law.
Upon instruction of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria, as a responsible member of the Security Council and with the support of the Arab group, has decided to submit a draft resolution urging everyone in this council to shoulder its responsibilities. We hope that this concise draft resolution can gather the support of everyone in this council. We need a united council. We need a unified council, because waiting for the occupying power to voluntarily abide by international law and Security Council resolution is pointless.
The grim reality in the West Bank is compounded by the situation in Gaza, he said, adding that the human toll of the Zionist massacres in the Gaza Strip speaks for itself. Algeria's ambassador to the United Nations added that the suffering of the Palestinians, which began with the Zionist occupation, will only disappear with the end of that occupation. To achieve this, he insisted, we must not wait for the Zionist entity to apply the Security Council's resolutions on its own.
around 800,000 settlers currently reside illegally in the West Bank, making life a nightmare for Palestinians. The Israeli occupying authorities have just proposed building 10,000 new housing units, and they are allocating additional funds for this settlement without being sanctioned by the Security Council. Furthermore, the occupying power continues its policy of demolishing Palestinian houses and structures with over 470 demolitions since January 1st, 2024. They persist in their effort to Judaize Al-Quds and its holy seat.
In this connection, he recalled the Zionist entity's stated intention to continue its crimes in Gaza and its attempt to discredit UNRWA and to make this United Nations agency responsible for helping Palestinian refugees look like a terrorist organization. We call on the Security Council to defend this organization, which is essential for the stability of the Middle East, concluded the Algerian's representative to the United Nations.
The United Nations Security Council is set to vote today on a draft Algerian resolution to stop the ongoing Zionist aggression against the city of Rafah. The draft resolution states that the Security Council may decide that the occupying power must immediately cease its military attack and any other action in Rafah. The draft resolution calls for an immediate ceasefire respected by all parties and also demands the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages and further demands that the parties comply with their obligations under international law with respect to all persons they detain. The Arab Inter-Parliamentary Union has condemned the appalling massacre committed last Sunday by the Zionist entity against Palestinians in Rafah, in the south of the Gaza Strip. In a press release signed by its president Brahim Boughali, Speaker of the National People's Assembly, the AIPU described as appalling the massacre committed by Israel in Rafah. The AIPU said in a press release the Zionist monstrosity, which exceeds all limits, cannot be tolerated and can only be described as a crime against humanity. The Arab Inter-Parliamentary Union has warned that the absence of sanctions against the Zionist entity by the international community and its UN institutions will lead to further atrocities against the Palestinians. Speaking to reporters following the meeting of the UN Security Council, the Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process and personal representative of the Secretary General Tor Westland had this to say.
If the Council can agree upon a broader set of measures that would move us forward by clear principles outlined for a two-state solution after this war in Gaza and after the commotion of the West Bank, that would help me a lot. When it comes to the issues relating to court decisions, that is more for the Council to decide and see how they would do that and how the institutional framework of ICJ would kind of take these actions. That is a fairly complicated thing, and I don't know how fast it will move. But I want to kind of turn it around and say that if the Council could outline principles like the ones I myself outlined in the Council today, together with other members of the Council, then we would move the direction very clearly in a different path than we have at the moment. And I hope that will happen.
As the savage Zionist aggression on the besieged Gaza Strip enters its 237th day, dozens of innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed or injured by the Israeli war machine throughout the war-stricken enclave, in addition to the famine and the widespread destruction of private property and public infrastructure caused by heavy shelling. More on the latest developments in the ongoing Zionist onslaught on Gaza with Said Bourazi.
At least 12 Palestinians were killed by the Zionist occupation forces in the town of Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip, the Wafa news agency reported, citing medical sources. The occupying forces targeted a group of Palestinians who were attempting to recover the body of a martyr from under the rubble in the center of Rafah, as a result of which several Palestinians were martyred. To the west of the city of Gaza, 1 Palestinian was killed and 6 others were wounded after the Zionist aircraft targeted a house in the Shati camp. In the north of the Gaza Strip, several Palestinians were injured when the occupying forces targeted a residential flat in the town of Beit Lahia, while an artillery bombardment targeted the clinic of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, in the El Maghazi camp in the center of the Palestinian enclave. In the meantime, the United Nations has said that the amount of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip has dropped by 2/3 since the Zionist entity began its military aggression in Rafah in the south of the Strip this month. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, said the amount of food and other aid entering Gaza, already insufficient to meet the soaring needs, has further shrunk since 7th May, with a daily average of 58 humanitarian aid trucks reaching Gaza between 7th and 28th May, compared with a daily average of 176 aid trucks between 1st April and 6th May.
Vital medical supplies are fast running out in Gaza's remaining hospitals, the World Health Organization, WHO, has warned amid reports of continuing Israeli bombing and hostilities in the enclave. WHO representative in Palestine, Dr. Rick Peeperkorn, said the organization has distributed an enormous amount of essential medical supplies, but it's not enough, stressing that it is such an overwhelming disaster.
WHO actually deplores this attack, the attack on displaced people, and it demonstrates that there is no safe place in Gaza at all. Currently, there are 60 WHO trucks standing in Al Arish, ready to get into Gaza. So again, this plea, the Rafah crossing needs to be opened not just for medical supplies, but for all other humanitarian supplies. When there would be a sustained ceasefire and there would be entry routes into Gaza, which are properly managed, when there is a deconfliction mechanism which actually facilitates and supports, much more is possible.
That was the WHO representative in Palestine, Dr. Rick Peeperkorn. In the occupied West Bank, the Zionist occupation forces and settlers are stepping up their raids on Palestinian towns and villages. At dawn today, Jewish settlers burned Palestinian-owned tents and sheds for sheep in the town of Deir Dibwan, east of Ramallah, while the Zionist military stormed a number of Palestinian localities on Wednesday evening. More details with Said Bourazi.
Security sources told the news agency Wafa that a group of Jewish settlers attacked the outskirts of the town of Deir Dibwan from the eastern side and burned tents and shacks for sheep owned by local residents. Recently, settler attacks on Palestinians and their property have escalated in Bedouin communities in the occupied West Bank. In the Balata camp east of Nablus, 3 Palestinian youths were injured by shrapnel from occupation forces bullets during a military raid early today. In the Arub camp north of the town of El Khalil, clashes broke out on Wednesday evening between young Palestinians and the Zionist occupying forces. Wafa reports that the clashes broke out between young Palestinians and the Zionist occupying forces stationed at the entrance to the camp, during which the Zionist soldiers fired stun grenades and toxic gas towards the homes of Palestinians inside the camp, where arrests were reported. In addition, Palestinians were asphyxiated on Wednesday evening during an assault by Zionist occupation forces against the town of Sebastia, northwest of Nablus. The mayor of Sebastia said that the Zionist occupation forces stormed the town amid heavy gunfire and poison gas bombs, which caused a number of citizens to suffocate. In addition, the Zionist occupying forces closed the Tayasir military point east of Tubas. The occupation closed the checkpoint in both directions and prevented Palestinians from entering or leaving the checkpoint, which is considered to be an essential outlet between West Bank towns and the northern Jordan Valley.
Now back to Algeria in sports. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has congratulated the football teams of Olympic Aqbou and US Mostaganem for their accession to the Soccer for Professional League One. On his official account on the social media, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune sent his congratulations to the Olympic Aqbou and Espérance Mostaganem for having successfully reached the Professional Football League One. He also extended his greetings to their technical and administrative staff, as well as to the supporters of both teams, wishing them full success. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.